I was halfway through my blueberry muffin when she dropped the envelope on my table. At first, I thought it was some kind of mix-up, like she'd mistaken me for a delivery guy. But then the woman leaned down, her voice trembling just enough for me to notice. $300. All you have to do is sit near us and watch. I swear my brain lagged a second behind my ears. Watch what? She had this haunted look, mascara smudged at the corners like she hadn't slept in days. The coffee shop buzzed with normal chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine, some indie playlist in the background. But suddenly the air between us was heavy. She introduced herself as Naomi. Early 30s, messy brown bun, oversized hoodie that looked borrowed. She pointed to a table in the corner and said her boyfriend, Jeremy, would be there any minute. They'd been together for 3 years, but today was the day she was finally ending it. She wanted me to be her witness. I laughed nervously, thinking she was exaggerating, until she explained why. Jeremy had never hit her, yet. But he had a temper, the kind of temper that left holes in walls and smashed cell phones. Once, he even keyed an ex's car after she broke up with him. Naomi said every time she tried to leave, he'd rage, cry, beg, and she'd fold. This time, she needed backup. Not a hero, not a fighter, just someone close enough to call 911 if things went sideways. I looked at the envelope again. $300. More than I made in 2 days at my part-time job. And all I had to do was sit one table over, sip coffee, pretend to type on my laptop. Easy money, right? Except my stomach had already started to tighten. Jeremy showed up 5 minutes late. The kind of late that feels intentional, like a dominance play. The second he walked in, I got it. He was huge. Broad shoulders, shaved head, arms that looked like they belonged to a bouncer. He carried himself like the room was his, like people should step aside without being told. Naomi tried to greet him with a cheek kiss. He turned it into a mouth kiss, lips smashing against her cheekbone while his hand clamped around the back of her neck. She flinched, so quick, most people wouldn't notice, but I caught it. I opened my laptop and angled the screen so I could see them in the reflection. My hands were already sweating. Naomi started talking in this rehearsed tone, steady but fragile, like a tightrope walker praying the rope didn't snap. Jeremy, I can't do this anymore. At first, he chuckled, like she'd told some bad joke. But when she didn't laugh with him, his face dropped. No more smile, just that twitch in his jaw, like a motor revving up. He grabbed her wrist across the table, not hard enough to make her yelp, but I saw the skin go pink under his grip. You're not serious, he said, loud enough that the couple at the next table looked over. I shifted in my seat, thumb hovering over the pre-dialed 911 on my phone. My whole body was tense. Naomi had warned me not to intervene unless things got bad. But watching him lean across the table, his voice low and sharp, it already felt bad. The waiter came over. Jeremy's whole demeanor flipped like a switch. He grinned, ordered food for both of them without even asking Naomi what she wanted, thanked the waiter like he was some charming gentleman. But I could see the white-knuckled grip he still had on the menu. When the waiter walked away, Jeremy knocked over the salt shaker. Then the pepper. Then his water glass. His movements got sharper, his voice faster. 3 years, Naomi. Everything I've done. You don't just walk away from me. Naomi tried to stand, but he yanked her back down by the arm. His fake smile plastered on, as if to tell the room, nothing to see here, folks. That's when I realized, this wasn't going to be a simple breakup. This was going to be war. And I was sitting on the front line with nothing but a phone and a coffee cup. Jeremy's laugh was the worst part. Not the loud, obnoxious kind. No, this was quiet, clipped, like the kind of laugh a predator gives when it's already decided you're cornered. Naomi's voice didn't waver, though. She kept pushing forward, repeating lines she must have rehearsed 100 times in the mirror. We want different things, Jeremy. I don't feel safe anymore. I need space. The word safe landed like a grenade. Jeremy's nostrils flared. His smile died. His knuckles pressed flat against the table so hard the silverware rattled. The couple nearby exchanged a glance, half concern, half curiosity, but didn't move. Nobody ever moves until it's too late. I tapped my phone screen under the table. 911 was one press away, but Naomi had begged me. Only if he gets violent. Please. If he senses anyone is helping me, he'll snap. So I waited. Jeremy leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms wide across the booth like he owned the air she breathed. His voice dropped low, sharp enough that I could only catch fragments in the hum of the cafe. After everything I gave you, you think you can humiliate me here? His tone had shifted from begging to accusation, and then, suddenly, charm. He flagged down the waiter with a grin, cracked a joke about clumsiness as he handed over the empty glass, then slid right back into whispering venom at Naomi the moment the waiter walked away. Two faces. Same man. And I was watching both switch in real time. Naomi tried again to stand. This time Jeremy caught her purse strap before she could slide out of the booth. His grip looked casual to anyone else, but the way her shoulders tightened told me it was a leash. Her lips moved. Help me. My stomach dropped. I started to rise, but Jeremy's head whipped around like he had radar. His eyes locked on me, cold, sharp, unblinking. The kind of look that makes you feel like he's already memorizing your face for later. You need something, buddy? His voice was steady, almost polite. Too polite. Every neuron in my body screamed run. But I forced a shaky smile. No, just stretching, I said, sinking back into my chair. Jeremy didn't move, didn't blink. He just kept staring at me, long enough that the skin on my neck prickled. Then he stood, not to leave, not to storm out. He walked straight toward me. The cafe went quiet in that weird way where everyone pretends not to notice, but every ear is tuned in. My heart pounded so hard I thought people could hear it over the hum of the espresso machine. Jeremy pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, folding his massive hands flat on the table, trembling, not with fear, with restraint. The kind of trembling that comes from holding back violence by a thread. You're with her, aren't you? His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. He leaned forward just enough that only I could hear. She hired you to protect her from me. Behind him, Naomi's face crumpled. She shook her head frantically, mouthing, "Run. Please run." I forced myself to meet his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here working. I gestured at the nonsense document on my laptop screen. Words scrambled together like alphabet soup. Jeremy leaned in closer, studying the screen, then studying my face, as if he could smell the lie. The silence stretched, thick enough to choke on. And then, without warning, I made my move. I reached for my water glass with a shaking hand and deliberately knocked it to the floor. The crash shattered the tension. Ice and glass scattered across the tiles. Waiters and busboys rushed in with towels, and Jeremy had to scoot his chair back to make room. Naomi exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. I dialed 911 under the table and left the line open. No words, just an open channel in case everything went to hell. Jeremy smiled again, all charm, telling the manager we were just having a lover's spat. He slung his arm around Naomi, pulling her close like a prop. She sat rigid, eyes glassy. To anyone else, they might look like a couple patching things up. But I'd seen the other side, and he'd seen me, which meant, whether I liked it or not, I was in this now. The bell above the cafe door jingled as Jeremy finally stormed out, his shoulders tense, his jaw clenched. The second he disappeared onto the street, the whole place seemed to exhale at once. Forks clattered, conversations resumed in forced tones, and someone laughed too loudly like they needed to convince themselves everything was normal again. But nothing about it was normal. Naomi collapsed into the nearest chair, shaking so hard her iced latte sloshed over the rim. I walked over, sliding her the napkins she didn't bother to use. She just pressed both hands to her face. "He has my keys," she whispered. That was when I realized she wasn't free. Not even close. The manager hovered nearby, awkward and uncertain, as two cops finally showed up 20 minutes later. Their notebooks were already half full from whatever calls they'd taken before us. One officer sighed when Naomi explained. "So, he didn't actually hit you?" "No," she said, voice raw. "But he grabbed my wrist. He wouldn't let me leave." The cop's pen stilled. He looked at his partner, who gave a little shrug. "Ma'am, without an explicit threat or physical harm, our hands are tied. It's just a domestic dispute." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them and point at Naomi's trembling hands, her wide eyes. How is this not enough? But instead I wrote down every single word they said, my fingers flying across my keyboard. Because if the system wasn't going to protect us, I damn well was going to document it. By the time Naomi's locksmith arrived, I'd already set up a shared folder on Google Drive. Every detail, I told her. Dates, times, screenshots, everything. She nodded numbly, entering her email with shaking hands. And that's when my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Unknown number. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Hey there. Jeremy's voice oozed through my speaker. Calm. Friendly. Which made it worse. I think we should talk about that little misunderstanding today. No hard feelings. I know you were just doing what you were paid to do. My blood froze. He knew. He knew. And he had my number. That night, Naomi texted me at 2:04 a.m. He's parked outside my building. Just sitting there. I'm at a gas station down the street. I can't go home. I told her to call the police, but they gave her the same line. Public street. Not illegal, nothing they could do. I barely slept. Every headlight passing my apartment window had me clutching my phone, waiting for the knock at my door. The next morning at work, my manager pulled me aside. Got the weirdest reference check call about you yesterday, she said. Some guy claiming to be your former employer. Asked about your schedule, your coworkers, if you usually work mornings or evenings. Her frown deepened. He wasn't asking about your performance. Just details. Too many details. I didn't have to guess who it was. Jeremy wasn't just watching Naomi anymore. He was watching me. 2 days later, Naomi and I sat side by side in a crowded courthouse lobby, clutching clipboards like lifelines. Filing for a protective order felt like the thinnest shield in the world, but it was all we had. 48 hours, the clerk said. That's how long until a judge could even look at our papers. 48 hours of living like prey, while Jeremy circled closer. And the cruelest part? That's when he escalated. Because predators always do when they smell they're losing control. That evening, I was back at the cafe where it all started, trying to convince myself routine meant safety. I just opened my laptop when the bell over the door chimed. Jeremy walked in. He didn't order, didn't pretend. He just sat at a table across the room, facing me, hands folded like he was waiting for something. I started recording on my phone, my pulse racing. The second he noticed the red light of the camera, his lips curled into a smile. Then he stood and walked out, slow and casual, like he had all the time in the world. My whole body shook. I couldn't type, couldn't drink, couldn't breathe, because I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. The first call came at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. One ring, then silence. By the fifth call in 10 minutes, my hands were shaking too badly to hold the phone steady. I let the sixth one go to voicemail. It was just breathing. Slow. Heavy. Like someone was standing right behind me. I blocked the number. Seconds later, another call. Another. Jeremy wasn't just circling us anymore. He was inside our lives. Naomi cracked first. 2 nights later, she answered one of the numbers. I don't know why. Maybe exhaustion, maybe hope. But when I picked up her call afterwards, she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. He said he's in therapy already, that he's changing, that I just need to give him a chance, she hiccuped through the words. But then he started screaming, saying I ruined his life, that I led him on. And now he won't stop texting. I told her to screenshot everything. She whispered she couldn't, that she'd already deleted some of them because she couldn't stand looking at his words anymore. Hope is a weapon. That's what the advocate had told us. I didn't understand it until now. I tried to fight back with control. Security camera at my door. Motion lights in the hallway. Pepper spray in my bag. A baseball bat under my bed. My bank account bled out faster than I could refill it. But what price do you put on sleep? On walking into your apartment without your pulse spiking at every shadow? The illusion of safety was better than nothing. Or so I thought. Monday morning, I found 3 long scratches etched into the driver's side of my car. Too precise to be random. Too shallow to be proof. The cop who came out squinted, wrote down a few notes, then told me it was probably kids messing around. But I knew. God, I knew. That night, I sat in my apartment, the video feed from my cheap camera open on my laptop, refreshing every few seconds. And still, Jeremy found a way to get closer. The grocery store. I was reaching for milk when someone slammed into me hard enough to knock bread and cereal onto the floor. I spun, ready to apologize, only to freeze when I saw him. Jeremy bent down, smiling, helping me pick up boxes. To anyone watching, he looked polite, helpful. But when he handed me my bread, his fingers tightened around my wrist. Not enough to bruise, just enough to make my pulse stutter. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed my ear. Stop filling Naomi's head with lies. I fumbled for my phone, but by the time the camera app opened, he was already halfway down the aisle. He turned back once, waving with that wide, fake grin. Like we were old friends. I sat against the dairy case until my legs stopped shaking enough to stand. 2 days later, Naomi's protective order was finally granted. 500 feet. No contact. No exceptions. It should have felt like victory. But serving him the papers turned into another nightmare. The process server tried his apartment. Nothing. His gym. Gone before they arrived. His job. Vanished. 3 failed attempts. Each costing Naomi more money she didn't have. It was like Jeremy knew they were coming. Like someone was tipping him off. And until those papers were officially handed to him, the order was just ink on paper. A shield we couldn't even hold up yet. I thought maybe it would calm down. That maybe he'd grow bored or tired. But then I got the email. Subject line, apology. It started sweet, too sweet. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I know you were just doing your job. But it turned fast. Accusations about me being Naomi's accomplice. Claims I was a paid actor. That he had proof. That he would sue. That he knew where I lived. What car I drove. That lies had consequences. I forwarded it to Officer Thorne, who said it was good evidence. Evidence. Like we were in a game where the only way to win was to stack papers higher than the other side. Meanwhile, Jeremy just kept playing. And the longer it went on, the more I started wondering if we were witnesses or prey. The courthouse was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, humming fluorescent lights, a line of scuffed benches that smelled faintly of old coffee. Naomi sat 3 seats down, biting her fingernails, both of us pretending not to know each other. The prosecutor had warned us. No eye contact, no shared whispers. Jeremy would twist anything into evidence of collusion. When the bailiff called his case, my legs felt like lead. Jeremy entered in a gray suit, clean-shaven, hair slicked back. He didn't look like the man who grabbed Naomi's wrists or whispered threats in grocery store aisles. He looked like someone's financial advisor. Calm. Professional. And that was the worst part. Because I knew what lived under that skin. When it was my turn, I swore in and sat at the witness stand. The prosecutor asked me simple questions. What did you see at the restaurant? Did Jeremy restrain Naomi? Did you feel threatened? I stuck to the script the counselor drilled into me. Facts, not feelings. He grabbed her wrist. He blocked her path. He raised his voice. My breaths came slow, mechanical, just like I practiced. But then Jeremy's lawyer stood. And the attack began. Why did you take money from Naomi? He asked, his voice calm and cutting. Why were you even there? I tried to explain. Wrong place, wrong time, laptop open. I needed the money, but I never knew Naomi before that day. He smirked, then said the word like a blade. So you were a paid witness. The courtroom murmured. My stomach dropped. I wanted to shout that it wasn't like that. That $300 had ruined my life, not bought me. But the lawyer didn't care about truth. He only cared about planting doubt. And Jeremy sat there, hands folded neatly, shaking his head sadly, playing the victim. After 2 hours, the judge leaned back, sighing. The pattern of contact, the escalation, it establishes a credible threat. The protective order will stand for 1 year. Relief flooded my chest, but it was thin, brittle, because I could see Jeremy's face as he stood, his jaw tight, his chair clattering to the ground, his lawyer scrambling to gather papers. He stormed out, but not before locking eyes with me. And in that blank, burning stare, I heard what his words didn't say. This isn't over. We'd won. But victory felt like ash. That night, my phone blew up. Anonymous accounts calling me a liar, a gold digger, a homewrecker. Screenshots of my LinkedIn, my workplace, even my mother's Facebook. Strangers threatened to expose me for ruining an innocent man's life. Jeremy didn't need fists anymore. He had an army. Naomi vanished into a sublet through the Advocate Network. A tiny studio in a building with cameras, security doors, and neighbors who didn't ask questions. She left her old life behind in storage boxes. I moved, too, into a converted warehouse with rent that ate 60% of my paycheck. Security cameras, a doorman, locks upon locks. I carried pepper spray to the mailbox. I learned every escape route out of my building. Fear has a price tag. Mine came to over $1,500 in safety expenses. The original $300 sat in my desk drawer, crisp and untouched. Months passed. Jeremy pled down to disorderly conduct, probation, counseling. Just paperwork. Just ink. But every time a dark sedan slowed outside my building, my heart seized. Every knock at the door made me grab my phone. My nervous system didn't know the difference between real danger and shadows anymore. Naomi's text said she was managing therapy twice a week, back at her job, taking new routes to work every day, always looking over her shoulder. And me? I kept pretending I was okay. But the truth was simpler. 6 months later, Jeremy was still in my head. The fear never left. If you asked me whether I'd do it again, whether I'd take that $300 from a stranger in a coffee shop, I'd probably say yes. But I'd ask more questions first. Because helping Naomi didn't just make me a witness. It made me a target. And some targets never stop glowing.